Now, KZN mortuaries are under pressure. They're having to deal with the large number of bodies of people who died in the devastating floods. Over 430 people lost their lives in the worst floods in decades. Our Lindokuhle Xulu is visiting mortuaries where families are looking for their loved ones. He joins us now live from Durban. Lindo, very good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on NewsLink. Now, first of all, let's just talk about the overall. Paint us a picture overall at the present moment. Are the mortuaries overflowing at the present moment?
Well, many families are still making their way to government mortuaries to identify their loved ones, but some to ensure that postmortems are conducted so they can proceed with some of the funeral arrangements that are needed at this stage. So one of the things we are seeing is that there's a lot of people that are coming in this particular mortuary in Phoenix. They are here to identify their loved ones. But more than anything, the concern comes from some of the funeral parlors from KwaZulu-Natal, who are essentially saying that the money is earmarked or set aside to help families bury their loved ones. They are released in a slow pace, and that is why they say that the last weekend when people were supposed to bury their families, not even 50 were able to do so out of the 435. And this is because they're saying that government is dragging its feet when it comes to issuing these monies. So some of the funeral parlors have raised their concerns in terms of all of these things, saying that there is indeed a problem when it comes to government releasing these funds. So that is something that we understand was an issue. We do understand from some of the associations and forums around funeral parlors who are telling us that in fact what has happened yesterday was that there was a meeting between the associations as well as government to try and find an amicable solution when it comes to families that want to bury their loved ones. So those are some of the things we are seeing today. We were set to actually speak to one of those organizations just to get a sense really of what would be happening, and unfortunately at this stage he hasn't gotten here. He was telling us that he's turning the corner and coming this side, but some of the representatives are here saying that they are also concerned about the fact that there might be corruption when it comes to issues of actually rolling out this money. They're saying that this slow pace by government signals to them that maybe there is some plans in place to actually loot some of the monies that have been set aside. So some of those concerns are coming from the fact that as things stand, the bodies, many of them had passed away due to the floods, so water-related deaths. They're saying that the bodies are not in a good condition, and that is why we are seeing that some of those bodies have been decomposing, and that is why we are seeing calls from many organizations to actually speed up the process of giving people those monies. In fact, the guest that I was speaking about, Ubabu Muzi, is here, so we'll just try to throw to him in terms of some of the concerns. Thank you so much, Mkhulu, for joining us. We are live on eNCA. Just give us a sense of some of the concerns around people not getting the money as well as not being able to bury their loved ones.
One would like to start about the slow pace in the releasing of the bodies itself. We are only close to 100 bodies that we've buried out of the 440 bodies that people passed on. So there's a lot of a backlog in terms of the bodies that are yet to be buried. Once again, you know, the state of these bodies is not very, well, you know, they are at a decomposing state. So as the industry, we would like to bury them as early as possible to allow families to find closure. When it comes to the payments, you know, we haven't really received anything, not even a cent of the monies that we're supposed to be paid. We were promised that the monies will be paid before the burial takes place, because in the same 20,000 that is on the table, we were supposed to give 5,000 rand towards the family for the grocery for the funeral. And now some of us are being pressed to use our own monies and give the families that 5,000 rand for them to be able to buy groceries. But how long can we keep that as undertakers? You will note that there are some small undertakers who can't even afford that 5,000 rand. It will mean for them they have to go and borrow money elsewhere, or else have to proceed without giving this 5,000 rand to the families. So families now will have to go out and borrow money elsewhere. So we would wish that both the Metro and the Motsepe Foundation could expedite the process of paying these claims so that our people can be buried in dignity that they deserve.
You are speaking about these monies that are not being released, having to tap into your own coffers to help families bury their loved ones. Of course, you are saying it's unsustainable, but what is it exactly that you believe is happening in terms of this slow pace, this government dragging its feet when it comes to giving families this money? I know there are concerns of actually seeing that there might be corruption here and there in terms of this unraveling of the funds that had been set aside, but just give us a sense of what are your thoughts around that? What are your concerns when it comes to these money?
Look, it attributes to poor planning and the lack of a will to deliver with most government officials. For them, it's business as usual. They don't know when the situation needs or calls for us to be agent and move as quickly as we could. And also, the poor communication between these two bodies, because this time around it's not the Metro that is paying, but the Motsepe Foundation. So there's a different set of people that are dealing with the Motsepe Foundation, and a different set of people that are dealing with this at the government side. Also, councillors are playing a critical role here in these delays, simply because some of the councillors would like to have their friends taking over the burials so that they can themselves benefit through kickbacks from these undertakers. So it's becoming very frustrating. There's a family that has went directly to the mayor of eThekwini and launched a complaint that a councillor did not want to assist by issuing a letter that is required when launching these claims, citing that the family has chosen their own undertaker instead of waiting for him to prescribe a certain undertaker that is supposed to conduct a funeral on their behalf.
Let's talk lastly about the state of the bodies. We are concerned about the slow pace of government, but really something that is of concern is also the medical catastrophe that many have said could happen if these bodies are still kept in mortuaries and they are in a decomposing state. But just give us a sense in terms of what is actually in those mortuaries and what is the concern when it comes to the medical aspect of things, as well as maybe some diseases that might be at play at this stage.
Look, we normally treat bodies if they come to us before they decompose. But when they've already decomposed, there's nothing you can do. Yours is to bury as quickly as possible. But as I've said to you, the delays that we are experiencing, remember some of the bodies are already found at a decomposing stage because they will be found 2-3 days after the incident. Some bodies were found even on Sunday. So if a body has been in water for 2 weeks, already that body is totally decomposed. So ours is to collect it as soon as possible and bury them. But the situation as it stands, the pace is very, very slow, very slow. Yesterday we had a meeting with the committee that is established. It was formed by the Premier, Sihle Zikalala. We had said to them, we need to have at least a time frame in which we all want to see this funeral being dealt over with. We can't have a situation whereby we are keeping bodies for more than 2 weeks. It's a 3rd week now. We are going to the 4th week, and all these bodies are in a decomposing state.
All right, Baba, let's leave it there for now. Baba Umuzi Hlengwa from the National National Funeral Practitioners Association, but just giving us a sense really of some of the concerns they have as the undertakers industry, as the funeral parlor industry, talking about issues of slow, dragging of feet when it comes to releasing monies, but also at the same time talking about the fact that there is a concern around the bodies and the state in which they are in. So those are some of the concerns they've raised to the task team set aside by Lindokuhle Xulu, the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal. But at this stage, there's not even half of the bodies that were buried on this past weekend. And it's something that they are constantly trying to work with. On my left-hand side, I can tell you that this is a hospital where there are many families that keep on making their way inside here. They are trying to go identify bodies, get post-mortems done. But the concern from these funeral associations is that all of this is in vain if the funds are not released to families to actually bury their loved ones.
Lindo, thank you so much for your reporting. Lindokuhle Xulu there in Phoenix in KwaZulu-Natal. Let's move over.